Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today, I'm here with two Rolex Submariners from different ends of the time spectrum. This is part 3 of our Rolex Fit, Feel, and Ergonomics feature. I realized when I filmed the first two parts, although I looked at a large cross-section of Rolex watches from various generations available from our inventory at watchyouwant.com, I was remiss not to highlight the distinction between a traditional 4 or 5 digit reference Rolex Submariner and the modern 6-digit reference Supercase Submariner. And I use that term enough that I really need to illustrate, apples to apples, what I mean by that term Supercase, the difference in the look, the feel, and the fit compared to a standard traditional 40mm Rolex Submariner. Now, if you like these features, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. And you'll note that on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the modern Supercase watch wears a lot more like a 42 or even a 43mm watch than a 40. What Rolex did when it began introducing the so-called Supercase with the 2005 GMT Master 2 was it kept the nominal 40mm measurement at the closest diagonal portion of the round part of the case, but you can see plain as day how much more metal there is in the lugs, how much more shoulder it has at the extremities of the lugs, how much more body there is in the crown guards, and even thickness to the case itself. That continues in the solid center links, solid end links, and the fully milled out clasp. Now, while some of these features had been introduced to the Submariner previously, they kind of shifted into a high gear with the arrival of the Supercase Submariner and the 97-200 reference bracelet and clasp that I have here. I want to talk about how this wears because, quite frankly, in comparison to the width, let's just take a look at the lugs of the 5-digit reference 16800 that I have here. You can see that there is no comparison. Look how much more metal there is on the modern watch. You can see side by side, and maybe if I turn it on its back it'll be easier to see, but you can see side by side just how much wider the newer watch is at its extremities. You can see, looking at the crown guards of the older watch in comparison to the crown guards of the newer watch, just how much broader, how much more, I would say, almost steroidal the new ones are. Take a look at that contrast. These are both 40mm watches. You can see the crowns are exactly the same size. You can see crown to crown, the crowns are the same size, but the disparity in lug size is almost, or I should say crown guard size, is almost comical. And this might be the best angle for showing you the distinction in the lug width right there. Now you can see, aligned on the left side of your screen, how much of a gap there is on the right side. This is a much bigger watch. And it's also a more massive watch, because when I show you the profiles of the two cases, it really shows to good effect just how much bigger the modern case is. Now you can see silhouetted against the white of my backdrop just how much bigger, and I'll turn it around so you can see the crown, make it truly apples to apples. You can see just how much bigger the modern case is. You can see the lugs are taller. You can see the case is thicker. You can see the bezel is more massive. And you can see that the watch really is larger in every important sense. Moreover, you can see the difference between the traditional stamped oyster clasp right here and the milled out variant that comes with the modern bracelet. Now, what you see on your right side of the screen is the reference 93150 bracelet with 593 end links, and right here you're looking at the 97-200 bracelet and clasp. This is a fully milled out clasp. Both of them do have dive extensions, the distinction being on the newer watch it's Rolex's glide lock. You can see the detents of the adjustment system inside the clasp. Now that gives you 20mm of adjustment in 2mm increments. It works as solid as a Rolls-Royce door. The bottom line is everything about this watch is completely tool-free, user-friendly, and it feels like a bank vault. This watch is a little bit more pared down, a little bit more elemental, closer to Rolex's roots as a builder of utility and professional watches. You can see, although there is a dive extension built into the clasp, you must have some sort of toothpick or tool. I can do it with a toothpick, you can do it with a toothpick. If you want, you can do it with a jeweler's tool. But nevertheless, you will need some sort of implement to fully free this dive extension. So you have that available. Likewise, Rolex used to include perforated lugs because there was the assumption that the owner of the watch might want to put it on a strap for ease of use in filthy or otherwise squalid or hostile working conditions. Not so on the modern watch. Now, this has been the case since approximately 2004, but on the Super case, the lack of perforation stands out even more since the lugs themselves are so much more prominent in the modern watch. Now, on the wrist, the modern watch feels like a 42mm Royal Oak Offshore, whereas the vintage watch feels almost like a Datejust by comparison, and I mean the 36mm Datejust. But the advantage here is that it's much more comfortable if your wrist is smaller. You can see how this one doesn't even come close to testing the limits of my wrist. In terms of horizontal real estate, there's really no overflow or overlap there, and the case is also beautifully thin. Low to the wrist, you can see if I were to slide this cuff forward, it wouldn't take much, even with the overhang of the bezel, to get this cuff a relatively tight buttoned down sleeve to go over this watch. It's also a nice modern, I would say modern case construction with a vintage look. Now this is the 16800, a transitional model built from approximately 1980 to 1988. It's an important watch in the continuity because for Rolex, this watch represents a bridge between the watch we know today and the true vintage models. You can see the tritium dial. This watch did have a balanced cock, not a balanced bridge in its movement. This watch was the first to feature a 300-meter case as opposed to the 100 or 200-meter cases of the true vintage Rolex Submariners. This watch was the first one to feature a modern 4 Hz or 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate. And it was also the first to feature the unidirectional as opposed to bidirectional rotating bezel, and the first to feature a sapphire crystal. So this watch is fantastic in that it wears like a vintage watch with the gorgeous tritium patina. It looks like a vintage watch, and yet because it does have that burlier case, the sapphire crystal, and because parts are easier to come by for the more modern case, its gaskets, its seals, its crown tube, all of that means that this is a watch that can still be used for active wear, active lifestyle use. It can still dive, it can still jump, it can get very wet and wild. You can wear it almost everywhere you would wear this. So it comes down to a matter of aesthetic preference between the transitional reference, the 5-digit traditional case at 40mm, or the so-called super case that was phased in between 2008 and 2010, starting with the Smurf and ending in 2010 with the 116610LN steel model that you see here. It's quite obvious that these are from the same family, but they are different species. Bigger, brasher, more modern, traditional, pared down, lighter on the wrist, more durable, hardier, a little bit more user-friendly, more romantic, more evocative, more traditional. It's your choice, and both of these watches can be purchased on our website, watchyouwant.com. Take them home, drive them home, or swim home with these Submariners on your wrist at watchyouwant.com.